We believe Grievous is planning a separatist attack on Kamino.
Track on Ryloth. Master Dai and his men are.
After our attack, the chances of peace will disappear.
If we lose, Mandalore will indeed be lost.
I'll take on any job for the right price.
We have the Republic right where we want them.
We must stop the production of new clones.
This is personal for us clones. This is our war. My blood's boiling for a fight.
Welcome, Masters and Padawans, to episode 546 of Full of Sith. It's me, Bryan, host of the show. Really excited to bring this stuff for you. Holly couldn't join me this weekend, so I pulled a couple of other interviews out of the archives, and these are, again, things that haven't really hit the Full of Sith feed before. I've got two interviews, one with Dave Filoni and one with Dee Bradley Baker. Both come from Star Wars Celebration 5 all the way back in 2010. So these interviews predate Full of Sith by a few years. And you can tell there's a lot of common through threads through Clone Wars. This was right before Clone Wars Season 3 started, so you can imagine sort of how far back this goes. And just had a really great time talking to the both of them. And I've actually got video of these. Back then, it was easier for me to bring a video camera to these events than it was smaller audio recorders. The audio is probably better with the audio recorders, but, 14, 15 years ago is a whole different ballpark of technology. But these have never made it to the Full of Sith feed, and I thought it would be really great to pull these out. So without further ado, here is Dee Bradley Baker, and we'll start there, and we talk about Clone Wars Season 3.
I asked you last year at Comic-Con if you were voicing anyone else, any bounty hunters, and you're like, I can't tell you. I'm like, I bet it's Bosk. And you said, that's an interesting theory. Yes. And I posted that interview up online, and everybody's like, you're an idiot. Why would he voice Bosk? And I was like, watch, I'm going to be right. And everybody's like, no, you're wrong. He's going to be Boba Fett. And you were Bosk. And they all had to eat their hats.
Yeah, I did Anakin the Far and Queen Karina, the Geonosian Queen. I really loved doing that one too. But Bosk, man, I never would have anticipated the response that fans have to that particular character. But it's really strong. I mean, almost I'd say almost a quarter of the pictures that I'm signing are Bosk pictures. I mean, kids really love the clones. They're really into those. But man, a lot of fans, a lot of the older fans especially, they are loving Bosk. They're psyched that he's talking and that he's involved in the stories. And there's a great romance and fascination with these bounty hunters. Each one is very interesting and very unique, and it's a big part of season 2.
With Bosk's voice, I mean, it's very reptilian. I was going to ask how much of that is you. It sounds like it's all you.
Yeah, that one's all me. I usually find a way to modify my voice. I mean, even
He don't like that.
Or where they don't have to modify that. I do a lot of creature sounds. That kind of stuff. That I try to make it all right there, so they don't have to futz with it too much.
Yeah, it saves them a lot of money and time.
It does. It just gets them what they need, and I do it in a way that doesn't rip up my throat, and everyone gets what they want a lot quicker.
Yeah. But this season, the season premiere.
Have you seen it?
I haven't.
It's awesome. I saw it yesterday for the first time.
I want to see it badly, but it's the clones on Kamino.
Right. It's the rookies from the rookies episode, the prequel, showing how they were trained, how they passed training, which they just about didn't, and then Kamino is attacked. Ventress comes involved, and it's got personal stories about them that's small and that's actually kind of heartbreakingly good, but it's emotional. And then you've also got a lot of epic battle stuff going on too. That it's very cinematic, and it really steps up what they've achieved already in season 2 in a really incredible way. I think fans are going to be nuts. There was a moment. I won't tell you what that moment is. When we were watching it, where I literally shouted and said, "What?" like that. And when it happens, you'll know what moment that is. But it's incredible. But but the whole thing is fantastic. But it's just the beginning of a really fantastic season.
I'm terribly excited. Really, can't even.
You won't be disappointed. See it in high def. You get it. You got to get it in high def. I love high def.
I mean, you're the rookies. You're all those guys.
Oh yeah.
What is it like? Did you have to go back to the original episode to see what you did for all of those other guys?
Yeah, I had to listen through that, and then we have to kind of make sure that we've established the flavor of each one of these guys before we start out. And then with a really clone-heavy episode like that, for most of the scenes, we'll just record each one separately, straight through, just to maintain the integrity of the characters. That's really important. I think it's really what kids and fans key into about the clones is that they seem unique. I mean, let's say, I've had people ask me, are there new helmets coming out? Are there new tattoos? They're really into the individualization of these clones, and so it's a big issue for the show, for Dave Filoni, our director, for the writers, and for me, to try to make these guys seem individual, because the whole story of the war and the tragedy of what is unfolding means so much more. It resonates so much more if these guys are individuals.
Yeah, no, I remember Filoni saying a while ago that half the point of this show is to make you care about the clones, so that when one of them dies, it's not just like collateral damage like it is in the movies.
That's right. That's right. They're not robots. They're not. It's the humans fighting the robots. And a lot of grown-ups that I know, I guess I'm one too now, who aren't familiar with this series. They say, "What do you do in the show?" And I say, "Well, I voice the clones in the show." And they go off and watch the show, and they say, "Oh, I heard you. It's the robot voice. You're the robots." Like, no, the clones aren't the robots. The clones are the humans.
You got to do some really interesting stuff in season 2. I mean, last time we talked, season 2 was just sort of a twinkling in everyone's eye. But there was that episode, that really interesting moral, philosophical debate between the clone that had run away.
The Deserter. It's one of my favorite episodes.
It was really good. I
just watched it on my iPad on the way out here, and it's one of my very favorites, because I am a dad, and that whole issue, there's a lot of issues, but breaking ranks, protecting your family versus larger obligations that you've sworn allegiance to, and just done in a very small but compelling way. It still has all this awesome stuff with Grievous versus Obi-Wan, but you get the commando droids coming in after the children. That particular episode really grabs me. I really like it.
And there's some really cool science fiction stuff to it too. I mean, like the morality of clones, like what place do these guys have in the universe? That kind of stuff is all like fascinating. And breathe life into it. Really compelling.
Oh, great! Well, I'm glad that you feel that way. It's really essential, and I mean, just as a fan of this kind of thing and of this show in particular, I mean, the further you get into the series, for me, the more I like these guys, these clones, but the closer we get to Order 66 and to everything just completely flipping around and everything going to hell in a handbasket, and I mean, I always say that what increasingly I want to know, because I know, you know how pretty much everything else plays out, is I want to know what happens to Rex. I want to know what happens to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Because by the time you're in episode 3, where did they go?
Yeah.
Well, these are no small characters in this television series. They're really important. They're almost the everyman characters in this series. And as such, I want to know what happens to them. I really do.
It sounds like you approach the show like a viewer almost. Like it sounds like you're a fan. I mean, do you watch with your kids?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I mean, I love Star Wars since I was a kid. I saw it the day it opened and the day after it opened. I actually read about it before I came out here. Had my folks make me a Jawa costume the Halloween after. And then the next summer, when they re-released it in '78, I was hired by the local movie theater to wear my Jawa costume, scare people as a Jawa, make Jawa sounds, and watch Star Wars all summer long. And they paid me movie passes, which is
that's a dream job. Yeah. So I mean, you do voices on other kids' shows too. I know.
Yeah.
These kids are Barry the Platypus.
Barry is great. That's a great gig right there. I made that sound once, and they reprinted every show. But they also have me do incidentals on that show as well. Delivery guy or high school kid number 5 or whatever. So I'm other voices as well.
I'm kind of amazed. Like that show has. I mean, I'm not amazed. I mean, it's a great show. But for like my kids, I took my kids to Comic-Con, and while I was doing Star Wars stuff or all of my press stuff, they were going to the Phineas and Ferb booth, and it's like it's this kind of geek vibe to it, not just on the show, but even behind the scenes. Where like that's the next generation of Comic-Con goers and whatever.
Yeah, it has a broad appeal that you do not find in a lot of shows. The only show I can think of that's similar in a lot of ways is SpongeBob, where you've got the very young all the way up to the very old. They like it and they watch it and they love it. And I think part of the reason for that, for me, because I watch it a lot with my kids, is that there's a sweetness at its center, not a sourness, and there's not a lot of sarcasm. The parents aren't a couple of idiots, but it's very intelligent, very smart, very funny, not talking down to anybody. It's got really good songs in it too. That's one of the things I always say that in a way animation is the last bastion of melody in our culture, because all other forms of delivering a good song are either completely corrupt or dying or both or dead. And but you can go to a cartoon like Phineas and Ferb. There are a lot of good. Well, you can go to Phineas and Ferb, and you can get a nice song. It's funny, and it's a humble, good little song every episode. Not a lot of shows you can do that, but animation can bring that to you. I mean, in a broader context, like video games, for instance. I do these video games live concerts with Tommy Tallarico. They just did a PBS special on that. He lets me go on and make weird sounds every once in a while. And I really love how video games have brought programmatic music, orchestral music, to the ears of kids all the way up to adults in a way that a regular concert cannot. It's a really positive thing, one of the many positive things about video games.
Yeah, I brought my kids when they did San Diego at the con, and they loved it until they fell asleep.
Yeah,
it's after the con.
It connects people to music, and it also connects people to video games too. That's what I like about video games. Is the next thing.
So as far as video games, I mean, obviously there's been some Clone Wars video games, and
there's some really great ones coming out.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about. What kind of stuff have you done video games wise for upcoming Star Wars?
I'm on a number of them, but the thing is, I can't keep them straight in my mind. I'm involved with Force Unleashed 2. In fact, I think I'm in all of them. Yes, I think so. But the thing is, I haven't played them, and a lot of the times I haven't seen it at all. I mean, I haven't been shown gameplay or anything. We just recorded, months back. a bunch of lines, and so I can't talk with any authority about the game yet. But I think there's at least 3 that are about to come out that I was pretty heavily involved in.
What kind of voices were you doing for like Force Unleashed, or can you not say that?
I'm not sure if I can talk specifically, but I mean, you can well imagine.
Yeah.
There's one voice that is a new character that is very evil and is a new character. Past that, I don't think I can say. Other stuff is stuff that I have done or along those lines. In any case, but again, I'm not a great source for it because I can't keep it straight.
That's fine. Back to Clone Wars since Tracy is
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Keep going, Soldier. Keep going.
Of the episodes in season 3, like what aside from the premiere, sort of, I mean, were you given some? And again, I know I'm trying to word this as vaguely as possible to make sure you can answer.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can tell us that you're really looking forward to other than the premiere, which we
Okay. I can tell you. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to tell you. I really love Ventress. I think Ventress is an awesome villain. This will be demonstrated once again. The amazing Ventress will be on full display at the season premiere, the 2-parter on September 17th. But she's also involved in some stories in season 3 that are very interesting. That may not. The great thing about this is, to me, is that it will take things in a direction sometimes that you don't necessarily anticipate. And they'll take characters where you thought one thing and put them through something and something else will happen. And so watch what happens. Watch the storyline of Ventress. It's very interesting. There's a lot of other stuff that is coming down that I only partially remember or can't talk about.
Yeah.
Because we recorded a long time ago.
What's crazy about that is that, like, what's great about this show is that, like, even you just saying that launched 1,000 possibilities in my head, and I got this crazy idea, like, wow, what a Ventress, like, because in the trailer it seems like she's gunning for Ahsoka, and everybody's thinking, wow, Ahsoka's days are numbered. Ventress is actually trying to, like, talk to Ahsoka. No reaction, but it's okay.
That's an interesting idea.
But it is an interesting idea. I doubt we'll go there, but that's the great thing about the show is that, like, you can see things going in the future, and even though people write it off as like, well, we've seen episode 2, we've seen episode 3, we know how everything turns out, but it can still raise questions where there are plenty of possibilities.
Yep. I wish I could tell you more.
I wish you could too. I've got a friend who's a lighter in Singapore, and all we used to talk about was Star Wars. And since he got a job on Clone Wars doing lighting in Singapore, we can't talk anymore. It's terrible.
To me, I'm a performer. As an actor, I want to get the story out, and I don't think you myself personally, I don't think you lose anything by holding back the secrets. I think by letting stuff out, which they're going to let out actually more than they ever have actually they're going to show some stuff, as I understand it, that's more than they've ever done. I think that's a great way to fire interest.
Not just interest. I'm talking about, like, you have an enthusiasm for Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And you're a fan.
Yes.
And one of my favorite parts of fandom and being a fan is just to be able to sit with. I guess you have the crew and those guys that you can kind of just geek out about it with, but, like, my friend in Singapore is like, not everybody speaks English, and, like, I mean, he moved from LA to Singapore just to work on Clone Wars, and he's sort of like the biggest fan out there, and he doesn't have anyone to geek out about it. So it'd be very focusful to have one friend of the employee in the society.
Yeah, it would. It's very secretive, and they hold very tight control on it. And I mean, in the end, you just look at the results. It's like I can't argue with anything. It's such an amazing result. However you run it, go for it.
I do love that mystery behind it. I really do, and I try to avoid even the trailers for the next episode of Clone Wars, just because I just want to see what's coming up.
I just want to get it on Blu-ray. I don't want to see it on TV. I just want to get it on Blu-ray. I want to get full aspect ratio, high definition, free from commercials and logos. I want to see it in all of its gorgeousness, because, I mean, having been up to the ranch once last year for a press junket where they showed me like 6 episodes back to back, digitally projected in a pristine setting. I would pay good money to watch this series like that, rather than on television even.
I would too. I'm surprised they haven't let theaters organize, Friday nights, go to the theater and watch Clone Wars with 250 other Star Wars.
I love that idea. I absolutely love it. I wish I would be there, because these deserve to be seen in optimal conditions, because they are positively cinematic, increasingly so, as the fans will see in season 3. It's increasingly cinematic.
The stuff they've shown is really
It's sick. It's ridiculous. I mean, I look, it's like if I'm just walking by, it's like I can't tell. I have to look at it for a bit to see, is that from the features, or is that from? Is it a game? No. I guess that's our show. I can't tell.
Well, I mean, one of the big reveals they made yesterday was the Republic Commandos. Is there anything?
You got ARC troopers. You got Republic Commandos. You got. They're not. They are pushing all of this out further. This is not resting on laurels or just idling. They are moving all of this out further. I mean, Dave has an excellent awareness of the fan base, and in addition to what George is interested in. So he's very much, and the writers are very invested in moving this out into all these little corners that were previously maybe just indicated or shown in a brief flash, but that are now being brought out. I mean, you've seen in the trailer, there's a Jedi that I don't think we've seen her before. First in the opening 2 episodes. That's just absolutely captivating. Yeah. Can't take my eyes off it. Just captivating. I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah, no, I've had questions of people wondering when she's going to be on the show, and Dave said yesterday part of the reason she wasn't on the show is because they were worried people would confuse her with the Sith. But now that she's on,
she has a key role in the first 2-parter, and she's great. You just really love her.
Yeah. Well, we're behind schedule, but thank you for doing this, taking the time, and being
my pleasure.
Being great about it.
It's my pleasure to be. You're gonna have a lot more to like here in a few weeks.
Well, the show has gotten exponentially better. I mean, I walked into the movie, and that was my first exposure with it.
Yeah.
And I liked it, but I could tell it was 3 episodes scotch taped together.
That's right.
And I don't think I think a lot of what you guys are doing now on the show is just sort of making up for that almost. Like, I'm not sure why they decided to put those 3 episodes out as a movie, because even the next arc, that Malevolence arc, would have played much better in theaters actually.
Well, I mean, I don't really know the original decision-making process, but it's eminently clear that, like you're saying, is that they're making leaps and bounds in their progress in terms of detail, expressiveness, and just how they can render this world. The stories, the writing. I mean, like Rookies was a big chance. They took a big chance with that episode because it was. I mean, we recorded that, and they wrote that before this show was even airing, and they had no idea if anybody, all the fans who liked Anakin and Obi-Wan and Darth, everything else, if they'd even want to listen to a bunch of clones talk for for 20 minutes.
Is that satisfying then, hearing how well received the episode is?
I'm very proud of that. That's in so many different ways, but it's a real testimony to the smarts of Lucas and of the writing team that they have, and Dave and everybody that they're in a creative culture there that supports that kind of creative risk. To really push things out and push things forward, so it's not just showing the same thing over and over again, and that it paid off so beautifully it's incredibly exciting.
I can't argue with that. So, all right. Thank you again.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
He's such a great guy, and it's sort of amazing to me. So I think this was my first Celebration covering it as press. I didn't get to go to Celebration 4. I had been to Celebration 1, 2, and 3. Celebration 4 is the only North American one I've missed. And so when I went to Celebration 5, having the press access thanks to the work I'd been doing covering Clone Wars, it was just a whole different situation. It was the most amazing experience I had. That was the year I got to go to the Jon Stewart press conference and watch him interview George Lucas live on stage, which was really great because, Jon Stewart was one of those people that helped me understand better how to interview folks. And getting to sit in a room and talk to him and get to ask him questions was really amazing. And, just having these conversations with people, it really opened my eyes to a new world of how I want to do things. And I'm really grateful that I still get to do this sort of stuff now and again. So next we've got Dave Filoni talking about the influences behind Season 3 of Clone Wars and his own Star Wars fandom. And, it's interesting to see now that he's the chief creative officer at Lucasfilm, where he started and how he started as a Star Wars fan and what things have changed in the stories he tells from, over the last 15 years and what things have stayed the same. So without further ado, here's Dave Filoni.
I've reviewed every episode, and my favorite thing about watching every episode is all of the classic cinema that is just dripping. All of the episodes.
Sure.
Like there was the Kurosawa, like the Stray Dog episode. There was, and we were talking about the Notorious episode.
Absolutely.
And some of those movies, or some of those, I call them movies, but they're shows, whatever. But some of those episodes, they identify so strongly with me in a really affectionate way with these movies that I forgot that the Notorious episode was Senate Spy because I call it the Notorious episode.
Right,
Or Stray Dog, like I can't even, Lightsaber Lost.
Right.
How conscious of that? I mean, is that George, or does George come in and say, I really love Notorious, let's do something like that?
The Notorious one was unique in that was something that I came in and actually said to George, I've been watching Notorious. I really love that movie. And would it be possible for us to put Anakin and Padme in that situation? I mean, so many of the ideas, which I love, come from George directly, but, he and I will just be discussing stuff, and I'll say, hey, this might make a great episode. So I just kind of threw that at him, and he came back with this idea and outline. Because to talk with George is really, you have to speak a lot of language of cinema. And I'll be honest, my language isn't probably as wide as many, or as vast, but I know enough, and saying their names like Kurosawa, Bergman, they're going to come up. Even Fellini, we did a lot of Sergio Leone when it came to the Boba Fett stuff.
And the Cad
Bane stuff. So it's part of what I think some fans don't quite get, which is Star Wars is really ingrained in the movies and the cinema. And I don't mean that because it is. I mean because George loves films. he loves filmmaking. That's just Dee Baker.
Yeah, I thought it was a recording, and then I was like, wait, these are...
Yeah, and you know, he loves that stuff, and so that's the language of Star Wars. And the Notorious episode was really fun for us to do, and you know, the Stray Dog, that came straight from George because he worked with Kurosawa. He pays a ton of respect to that. We did the Seven Samurai episode with the Felucians and Embo and Sugi and all of them. We even put in memory of Akira Kurosawa at the beginning of it to show tremendous respect to him. And season 2 very much was a season of here come the classic zombie movies. Here comes the classic Godzilla movie. King Kong. Yeah, I mean, so it's just part of filming. In fact, at the story class I'm going to do today at the convention, I plan on starting out with who has seen this and who has seen that. Have you seen these movies?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of shocking anymore how many people have it.
No, I'm not shocked by that anymore, actually.
Yeah, it makes me sad, though. You know, I've met friends that won't watch anything that's black and white. I'm like, are you insane?
You know, my kids gave me that for a little while. They were like, I put on a movie for them, and I was like, I'm going to watch this. And they started complaining it was black and white. And I was like, you know what? You're not watching anything but black and white movies until that gets right out of you. And now, their favorite thing to watch is Three Stooges and Chaplin.
Yeah, I mean, The Third Man is a phenomenal film, right? I mean,
see, now that's like a black hole of conversation right now. It's just The Third Man.
Yeah.
That is one of my absolute favorite movies, and no one's heard of it, and nobody knows who Carol Reed is, and nobody knows who Grant Green is.
It's shocking, right? I mean, it's just, but you know, modern films roll on, but a lot of the smart filmmakers, they all know those movies.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can touch upon that in Clone Wars and some kid sees Kurosawa's name at the beginning of our film, in memory of Kurosawa, that makes them go look it up. I mean, I was lucky. My father showed me a lot of those films when I was a kid, but I also heard these rumblings of Hidden Fortress. It's relevant to Star Wars, and as a kid, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go watch that then. You know,
it's
so
got its moments, especially those two peasants.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a very fun thing for me. And to work with George is to get a better understanding of all those things in the history of film itself.
Which I'm sure he's an encyclopedia.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, he sees everything, and he's seen everything. So, I mean, his vocabulary, I can't even come close coming up with it. My editor, Jason Tucker, can't. He's seen a lot of stuff. George is the number one.
Yeah, I'm sure there's always that guy in everybody's circle who's just like the IMDb.
The encyclopedia, yeah.
And if you get into George's circle, I can't imagine you'd be able to compete.
And not only is he the IMDb, he's actually done it. You know, he's worked with most of those guys.
Since Gimme Shelter.
Yeah, I mean it's phenomenal, and he's got a poster collection at the ranch that you just look at and you'll see an obscure poster and Harrison Ford's in it. It's amazing. It's a real privilege to be a part of it.
As far as season 3 goes, and I know, I mean, obviously you guys haven't made your big reveal yet, so we can't exactly talk about your big reveal.
One day too early.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come to the press conference on Sunday.
Cool.
But I mean, you have kind of given some really sort of juicy tidbits in the press release. I don't know. It seems like more so than last year, because last year it's the rise of the bounty hunters, and then they kind of disappeared after 3 episodes. But it seems like, you know, I've heard more about arcs in the future and things in the future more so this time. Is that because you guys are more confident with what's going on, or that it was just bounty hunters, and bounty hunters always just soak up all the attention?
I think the bounty hunters were so unique compared to season 1. We really didn't use them. I mean, the Cad Bane episode at the end, Hostage Crisis, was kind of a foreshadowing of what was going to come. But, you know, they were almost off limits for a while with George. He just wanted to see us develop the show, and everybody was excited. You know, we had Lost running around suddenly, and Cad Bane, and Aurra Sing, and Boba Fett. So they were kind of throughout the season, but you know, whether they defined it or not, they were definitely a new, interesting element that we hadn't had. This season, it's more about, I think we just know the show better. We know what works when we produce it. We know what doesn't work. And I think we've just improved on all levels. We've taken the experience of the first 2 seasons and just grown. And the characters at the beginning of the season, well, I think the audience will see, will have in some ways forever changed by the end of the season. And we're going to see that kind of growth this year, which I think is really fun and exciting. I mean, every episode has something in it that I think is exciting and revealing, and definitely a journey worth taking.
But that's not just metaphorical though either. I mean, you talked about yesterday that some of the characters like Ahsoka and Anakin, they're going to be going through more physical changes too. Ahsoka gets a little older. Anakin moves more toward his Revenge of the Sith sort of model.
Yeah, I mean, they're just evolving. I mean, mainly they're evolving emotionally towards those roles. But it's just something that has to happen. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm excited about it. It's very hard to hold back and, especially be around people that are so excited by Star Wars. And I want to tell you guys everything, and I can't.
I know.
So there you have it. I've been accused of being very good at delivering lengthy answers which have absolutely no point. So I think that's a skill to have, especially in my position.
Yeah. No, I mean the answer you gave yesterday about Luke and the dark side and using it's comforting as a fan to see that you're a fan like that, that you actually think about stuff like that. Because I think there's this really misplaced, there's this bizarre misplaced notion that sort of Star Wars is the fans, not George's. And to see someone in your position who's sort of like, you're the fan in there working with George, kind of bringing that to us. It seems like we've got more of a fan filter, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I guess. As a fan, it's strange. It was never my notion or idea that I was going to go up to Lucasfilm, work on the Clone Wars, and tell it my way. I have no interest in doing that. When I worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, I had a lot of influence on what I could do in my episodes. I could draw very fast, and I designed a lot of things for my own episodes. But my primary goal was to make that show what my friends Mike and Bryan, who created it, wanted it to be. They had spent a tremendous amount of personal time developing that show, getting it off the ground, and I was really flattered when they asked me to come in and do the first 2 episodes of it, the premiere. And I took that responsibility very seriously, and I wanted it to be everything that they had imagined it to be. And I think that experience led me to, when I came to Lucasfilm, the fact that George said he wanted to be around, and he wanted to oversee it, and he wanted to kind of teach me how to make Star Wars. That really, I take that very seriously. I want this to be what George wants it to be. It's not my interpretation of the Clone Wars. It's what George Lucas wants the Clone Wars to be, and the fans, I think, have to understand that he is taking that time, and I give that its total due respect, and I want them to get the most authentic experience they can. And I have to imagine in a lot of ways that any director that's worked with George, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Kirshner, the Mark 1, that's how they handle it. Yes, they're directing it, but they want it to be what George envisioned it to be. And that's the way I look at this job, to get George's ideas out of his head on the screen to the fans.
I don't think that's... I guess maybe I kind of put my question or worded it poorly or something. I guess that's not my thing, but that you're there interfacing with George to help him bring us there, but you're coming at it with a fan's perspective too.
Yeah, at times, yeah. Mainly as a filmmaker, to be honest. My knowledge as a fan, I can't change that. I obviously grew up with Star Wars, and I obviously, know a lot, and I'll joke with George about some things that I remember. I guess it helps. I definitely can catch some things that I think otherwise might have been missed, that I know fans care about very deeply. I think that's a good thing that I can do that for people.
And that's what I mean, that it's in good hands. That it's not just. A lot of people get this weird idea that Lucasfilm is just sort of this giant like machine that churns out Star Wars.
My crew, there's so many fans on my crew, as you know, one of them, and Killian Plunkett. I mean, we'll be in the 24th hour, and Killian will come up to me and say, this is wrong here. This little detail on the outside of the ship is wrong. We're on this droid, and I'm like, oh, Killian, you're killing me. But he's right. Russell Chong's another one. He knows Ralph McQuarrie's work inside out. They do their best to recreate what they can in great detail. Joel, Aaron, my CG supervisor, a huge fan. Athena Portilla, her license plate. I won't even tell you what it is because it's so noticeable. But she has a Star Wars license plate, and she, is a social producer on the show. She loves Star Wars. She works so hard behind the scenes, and I don't know how many people will ever get to see her because she's working so hard behind the scenes. But super fan. And so many of the story guys, the episodic directors, they all grew up like we did with it. And I've been really lucky that I've found a group of people, though, that while they are super fans, they don't let that get away in front of them being creative, sticking purely in the fan area. And it's tricky because you have to remember, as fans, sometimes you have specific needs that the general audience isn't going to understand. So the mindset that I have to use for my crew is, we're working in 1976. Nobody knows what the heck Star Wars is. Nobody knows what a TIE Fighter is, or a Jedi, or a Sith. It means nothing to them. In every episode, we have to convince people, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, this is what's at stake, and this is what we're trying to do. The fans will get the deeper meaning all the time. They understand who Admiral Yularen is. Yeah. He's sitting in the conference room with Vader, that Vader gave him a nice promotion along the way, that he's there in the Death Star. That's for them. But, I mean, the kids, some of them don't even know Palpatine's the bad guy.
Yeah.
So you have to service both those groups on this show.
The show is really delicately layered, where you do have that layer where it works for kids, and it's a really great show to watch with kids. But there's also like deeper stuff, like Dee and I were talking about that episode with the dessert. Mm-hmm. It's got these really great sci-fi moral quandaries in it, and you've got stuff that goes even deeper with just the mythology of Star Wars, like Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship, and watching Anakin treat Ahsoka as a Padawan the way it looked like Anakin wanted to be treated as a Padawan, and maybe that's not the best way to do it, and maybe it works or it doesn't. And it's very delicately layered in a really well-balanced way, and it's really good to see that.
What's interesting about Anakin, too, when people first found out he had a Padawan, I saw a lot of remarks by people saying, Anakin's Padawan gets the worst mentor ever, and Anakin Skywalker. And I was like, wow, what an interesting way to think about it. Because if you think about it, wouldn't Anakin make the best master you could get? Because once he gets over his initial hesitation of even wanting a student, I mean, he cares about people. He cares about people very deeply. He wants you to succeed, and he's, he wants to be the best at everything he can be, So he wants to be the best master he can be to Ahsoka. He wants her to shine. She in some ways is his legacy, master to apprentice. There's a theory with teachers and students that the only way the student can really, show her appreciation for the master is to surpass them. Now that would be quite an accomplishment for Ahsoka. Who knows if she's capable of that? Probably not, but
who knows if she'll get the chance to.
Right, I mean, but that should be the goal for her, right? Is that Anakin Skywalker is teaching me, and I need to be a very good student. So, I think Anakin is going to prove himself a very good master, and we'll have to see where it goes from there.
When I heard that was the case, I was initially really excited about it. Now I'm daffy about it. I really dig the dynamic. In fact, my favorite episode is still Duel of the Droids.
Oh wow!
Where Anakin shows up and he's so attached to R2 because he's not so attached to Ahsoka, and he tells Ahsoka, "You go face Grievous. I'm going to go find my droid."
Yeah.
And it's so reckless, but it's so trusting in her.
Yeah. Well, she's a Padawan. I mean, she's capable in a lot of ways, but the R2 come home idea was really that R2's like Anakin's dog. Yeah. And who wouldn't, go to great lengths for their dog? I mean, my dog, I love my dog. And, if someone kidnapped him, I'd be coming after you faster than you can imagine. And I think that, it shows a lot of caring in Anakin, but it also shows a fatal flaw in him because he can be exploited and used. And, you saw that in Harry Potter. When Harry he's kind of used by Voldemort and the Death Eaters to tricked into the Ministry to get, the prophecy. He's kind of deceived into it. His caring for his friends is used against him, and so it's a common theme, and it's something that definitely you see in Star Wars as well.
It's what do you when you're coming at all of this sort of storytelling, and I know you're doing a story panel, and what is it that you look to other than Star Wars that's really sort of, or The Third Man, or Kurosawa, something we haven't talked about? Like, what do you look for just perfect storytelling?
Well, I mean, I grew up. My mother read me Lord of the Rings. I mean, that was a huge influence on me. I loved it. The Hobbit growing up, I thought that was phenomenal. It's amazing now to me the pop culture height that it's reached. It blows my mind. It's so well known now. But it's very huge and epic compared to the 22 minutes I had. So, I mean, for influences, definitely an influence on me was Robotech, the animated series. That animated series to me showed me as a kid that, wow, these characters can die. Roy Fokker got shot down.
Yeah.
How does that work? The romance in it made me feel very much like what was happening in Star Wars, the Zentradi battle cruisers. I mean, it was all so incredible to me. And I was like, man, I want to grow up and make an animated series like that. In Japan, they had been doing this. The first time I watched Akira, I was like, you got to watch it again immediately. I didn't fully get what happened here. This is awesome. And I think all those things were a heavy influence. But Robotech, my brother and I used to race home every day to watch Robotech. And it definitely influenced the things that I was doing on this show. Because it's a war story, Robotech. And I've even watched the original Macross television series even more so. The story about love and war, and it was a very heavy influence on stuff I did. Veritech Fighters, I mean.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, and the thing about Robotech is that it's much more linear than cartoons were at the time.
Yeah. It's one of the things that, in a lot of ways, in a perfect world, I would have made things, I think, more linear, like Robotech. But it's tricky to do that. The way I've looked at Clone Wars instead is that we have these touchstone episodes that keep us moving forward, and then much like MASH, do you ever know where one episode falls at any given time? Not really, but you kind of know, depending on if Henry Blake is there, or is Colonel Potter there, is Charles Winchester there, or is Frank there, and that gave you a sense that the war is moving forward. And I think you get that same kind of sense with Clone Wars, hopefully, but it's mainly on Ahsoka's attitude and actions and Rex's that you can kind of tell, okay, we're kind of moving forward. She's matured a bit here and there. So
that's cool. And Robotech. Okay. No, I mean, my son's name is Anakin, but my daughter's middle name is actually Miriam.
Oh, really? Yeah. Sterling.
Yeah.
It's a training pilot.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's a really good show, and like now that you say that, like I can actually kind of see that a little bit.
Yeah. But Zentradi Battle Pass. There are so many cool things in it, and I thought that. Those guys had to be in some ways influenced by what George was doing with Star Wars to want to tell that story. And I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but it just kind of felt right. And as a kid that grew up with Star Wars, I thought that when that came on weekly for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is like G.I. Joe now to the next level for me, and because I grew up with that, and we used to watch those specials as a kid. So it was just like nothing I'd ever seen. And had I really even given thought that cartoons could be that serious or dramatic? Probably not at that point. Cartoons had always been Disney for me, or slapstick and Warner Brothers, and anime was just in a totally different place when we were kids. I think Voltron I saw first, and I thought that was cool. And who didn't like Lion Voltron? Was cool. And Star Blazers, was like this epic thing. But then Robotech just came in and just somehow blew it all away in my mind. It was just incredible.
Robotech, as cheesy as it still can be, still knocks me over. Like,
yeah,
especially
it's funny,
Farewell
you know?
Big Brother, like when Roy's actually sitting there.
Oh, strumming his guitar and
yeah.
he falls over. But the comedy too, and I'll say this, comedy is important in all this stuff. Han Solo's comedy is so important to Star Wars. And I mean, I still remember the scene. You remember the scene when, I think it's called My Sweet 16, where Mime's in the Miss Macross pageant. And there's an awesome scene. I know, right? It's ridiculous, right? But there's an awesome scene where Rick is bicycling up a hill.
Yeah.
And there's this ridiculously corny music going on. But it was funny. And then later, he's in the midst of this totally dramatic battle while shots of this fashion show are going on the screen. And it was incredibly dynamic to be watching that as a kid. And he's in the middle of this drama, and she's in this different drama on stage. I mean, that was really cool stuff. I mean, what a great episode. We saw the Veritech in battle armor for the first time.
Yeah.
But it definitely fed what I'm doing today in a lot of ways.
That's really...
All right.
I'm sure we'll see, Joe. When is the story panel?
My assistant Megan would know. She shuttles me everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I just I love going back through and checking out these old interviews. I hope you all have enjoyed them. I know this is only sort of scratching the surface of the interviews I've got. I hope you've enjoyed. You know, we did Rick McCallum recently, and we did David Tattersall. I've got a number of others. You know, over the next while. You know, I think I might trot some of these out. If that's of interest to folks, just let me know. You can find more about me at swankmotron.com. You can order signed copies of my books there, or even signed copies of the Star Wars cards I write at swankmotron.com or swankmotron across all social media. As far as Full of Sith is concerned, you can get to fullofsith.com and you can listen to the entire back catalog of episodes going all the way back to 2013. And like I said, these episodes came out, or these interviews were even before then. But you can go to fullofsith.com, send us an email at holocron@fullofsith.com, and don't hesitate to review and rate the show wherever it is you listen to it. So thank you so much for listening. For super producer Mike Pilot, for Holly Fry, who couldn't join me today, I'm Bryan Young, and the Force will be with you, always.
Sir, if you'll not be meeting me, I'll close down for a while.